defects of another alpha that will be different.
Oh, I see.
The media's coverage of the Hughes inquiry into the abuse at the Mount Cashel Children's Home by members of the Christian Brothers also contributed to the decline in church attendance. As testimony from victims of abuse was played out across Canada on a daily basis.
The hearings were taking place. And at the time, my brother was appearing for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I would watch it, and it would break your heart to watch a lot of what the testimony brought forward. So I had all these thoughts going through my head. The fact that my friend's father had been a security person in the evenings at Mount Cashel and would make everyone breakfast in the morning. So there were all these different personal community connections to what was happening, and the boys. And I had 3 boys, and I was watching all these other boys that had been abused. And these physical and sexual abuses have the ability to ruin a lifetime. They definitely change the individual's lifetime and the people that they're with and the family, and sometimes their children and their children's children. So it was a very emotional time. It was a shameful time where you sat back and you wondered about all the things that you touched, all the incidents that you never noticed that were there. I believed it was localized. I was very shocked by it. It rattled me. When I decided to leave the church, it took me some time because I was very involved in our parish. I was a lay reader, and I loved reading. I love all the readings that we use. I was a Eucharistic minister, and sometimes, many years ago, I was given a great opportunity to act as a lay minister, which was very powerful in my life. So it wasn't an easy decision for me to make, and I feel very connected with that community. Sorry. For me to come to a decision to walk away from that was enormous. I really feel, so many emotions. You feel anger, you feel disappointment, you feel loneliness. So it was tough. It was a tough time, tough decision.
Body of Christ.
Well, there was one pivotal moment.
Body of Christ,
I was at work, and I always read the Globe and Mail every day. It's part of how I keep in touch with what's going on. And there was a front page article at the time, and it was about Father Prince, a priest that practiced in Ontario, in a community that had many people from Poland that had immigrated to Canada. And it was a very close-knit community. And over many years, he was involved in sexual abuse of boys in that church. The families did not report these through the police. They reported it through the church. And they were reviewing documentation that now that Mr. Prince had been charged with 13 cases of sexual abuse. They were looking at some of the documentation that the church had. And there were letters that were written that went to the Vatican. And one letter in particular was the subject of this Globe and Mail article. And it discussed how the official, it wasn't an archbishop, I don't believe, had written the this letter to the Vatican to say that they were concerned that Father Prince was given an opportunity within the Vatican as a friend of the Pope, Pope John II, to be involved in a missionary office at the Vatican, and that he was given a new title of Monsignor, and it was would be viewed as being given an honor or an award within the Roman Catholic Church, particularly at the Vatican. And if their community heard of this, it might anger and motivate some of the families that they had kept quiet, and that they, I'm sure, felt that they had helped to heal in some sense. But they may have been very upset and would bring these cases to the officials on the civil end. Now, this would be after a lot of the doctrine had been written on how the Roman Catholic Church was to handle reports of sexual abuse. So this is after everything we went through in Newfoundland and Labrador, in Nova Scotia, other parts of Canada, into the northeastern United States. And they knew the process, and they didn't follow the process. And now they're writing to the Vatican and saying, don't provide any communication of this honor, because then they may report these people who had, particularly Mr. Prince, I suppose, but others, that had abused their children. And I have 3 children. And I thought to myself, you mean to tell me that in 1994, and possibly to this day, there are people in the Roman Catholic Church in Canada, a very well-educated and informed community, that would write to the Vatican, and the Vatican would comply, that there shouldn't be a communication, because this person, who they know to be most likely a pedophile, had abused many, many boys that they knew of, and they wanted to keep it hush-hush, and he was in the Vatican. And I thought to myself, the Vatican had all this information, and I was taught that the Pope is infallible, and that all the people within this system, when the archbishops get together and make a decision, it's infallible. There's no error in it. And this was going on, and I just sat there, and I couldn't believe it. And I thought about our friends in the 70s that were abused, and how that was handled. I thought about the intense emotion of the community and the church, and how many people had left the church at that time, and the people who really struggled but stayed, and we believed that it was going to be different, and it wasn't different. And I thought, if this was happening in a corporation or in another not-for-profit organization that involved youth, would I continue to support that? And I said, no, I couldn't. And I kept struggling with the thought. So it took me, as I mentioned, some time to come to an absolute decision. And then I sat back, it was a Friday night, and I thought, I'm not going home, because work had ended for the day and I was finishing things. And sometimes at that quiet time in my office where no one else is there and no one is calling you, you have moments when you can sit back and think. And I said, I'm not leaving here until I explain myself to Father Paul. Because Father Paul is still an important person to me. And I respect that man.
Let us proclaim the mystery of our faith.
And I feel that I owed him an explanation as to why I was disappearing from the congregation. So I wrote to him, and I told him, I can't explain to you why it's now that I'm 50 years old, why suddenly this information is so disturbing to me, because I knew so many elements of it before this. But it was that last piece. It was the piece that made me aware that it went to the Vatican that absolutely shattered the way I felt.